Well, hi everyone, Dr. Schroeder with this week's video introduction to week number 6 of our course in the theoretical foundations of teaching. And primarily this week we talked about evidence-based teaching. Now you've all had classes in evidence-based practice before. You're all very aware of and all very well acquainted with evidence-based practice in nursing. And as we discussed this week, the process for evidence in education and in nursing education is really the same as it is for any science and any professional discipline, including nursing. Everything that we do should be based in the literature somewhere. We have a whole body of literature, most of it going back to the 1930s. With the well, in the history of education, we've really had periods where we've gone through and just had a whole slew of changes came about. 1930s was big because that's when the concept of progressive education first came out. And that's when education really first started to be researched, was in the 1930s. Again, in the 1950s and 1960s, with the scientific revolutions that were going on at the time, there was another big change in technology and in education. And we've actually seen quite a few changes here just in the last several years. Now, the biggest changes, well, in nursing education, probably the biggest change is in how we incorporate technology, particularly with how we incorporate simulation. And so several of you had mentioned that, and so several of you had written about that in your responses this year. Other big changes have to do with, well, the relationship between the instructor and the teacher. Most educational models now will say that the best teacher is one that can be a mentor, somebody that can help a student follow along and help guide them to knowledge, as opposed to being, the wise sage that teaches them everything that there is to know and just transfers knowledge to them. And these are all things that have been studied quite a bit, and there's a continuing body of knowledge that's continually going on. The Journal of Nursing Education is probably one of the premier journals. Also, the Journal for Sigma Theta Tau is another journal that routinely has a lot of really good research on nursing education. So this is a field that is constantly changing, and it's constantly developing. It's very dynamic. And so that was really kind of the whole point of the discussion this week, was to, one, help you hopefully with your teaching plan. The teaching plan is quite a large assignment, by the way. I had received several questions about it, and I hope that I answered them adequately. It really is quite a large assignment. So if you felt like it was and like this is a hard one, it really kind of was. My hat's off to you that way. For what little consolation that is, just know that I understand that. I know that this is it takes a lot of thought, and it takes a lot of thinking through. And so I will be grading those this week. I will have the feedback to you all by the weekend, or by the end of this weekend. I'll start grading those, I would imagine, tomorrow. I'm recording this on Sunday, so I would imagine that probably on Monday I will start grading those and have them all completed by the weekend. It takes me a little while to grade those. This week we shift gears a little bit, and in week number 6 we're going to start talking about diversity, and specifically cultural diversity and diversity of learners. Now, we talked about learning styles early in this class, and so the kind of diversity that we're talking about here isn't the same thing as just people with diverse learning styles. Here we're talking about people that come from diverse cultural backgrounds, diverse sometimes financial backgrounds, and also dealing with individuals that have disabilities. And that's going to be the focus of the reading and the content this week. You have a discussion question that is going to talk about motivational learning, and you're going to be essentially integrating these concepts into your discussion question and response. You also have an assignment coming up next week where you're going to be talking about how you would conduct your lesson, or how you would do your teaching in a like in a distant environment, or in a sort of like non-traditional environment. So please be looking ahead for your paper next week. But for this week, again, no written paper this week, just getting started on the paper that you have due for next week, and of course the discussion question this week. So that's pretty much it, I think. I will leave you to the reading, and I will leave you to start on digesting this all a little bit for this week's discussion question. The discussions overall have been very good. I've enjoyed participating along with you. These last couple discussion questions primarily been giving rather a lot of feedback, not so much Socratic questioning as much as kind of a lot of feedback on a few specific areas on the posts that I felt were particularly insightful or particularly interesting. The class, all of you have really brought up some very good thoughts, and it's made for a really good discussion. So I look forward to some more robust discussion this week. So I will leave you to it. As you have any questions, please let me know. Look for your grades on your papers later this week, and I look forward to seeing you in the discussion forums.